Omakyanatimalvasyan Snakya Saksurnuvitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namini. Namaste Saraswata Deve Gauravani Vacharani Nirvishesha.
Recording in progress.
Jai Bezatani. Srila Prabhupada Ki. So today we will discuss Canto 2, Chapter 10, the last verses of the 10th chapter, the answer to all questions, Srimad Bhagavatam, the answer to all questions, verses 43 till 51. So it's good to be aware about the different levels of conversation that are going on here in the Bhagavatam. First, Lord Krishna speaks to Lord Brahma, and we heard that Lord Krishna gave him to the heart the Chatusloki. In the 9th chapter of this canto, verses 33 and 36 to 36, the Srimad Bhagavatam Chatusloki. Then Lord Brahma gave this to Narada, and that is explained also in this second canto, from chapter 5 to 7. And then we have heard in the first canto, in chapters 4 to 7, how Narada Muni gave this knowledge to Srila Vyasadeva. And then at the beginning of this canto, Srila Vyasadeva gave it to Sukadeva Goswami, the complete 18,000 verses, and Sukadeva Goswami in the beginning of this canto repeated it to Maharaj Pariksit and Sutta Goswami. And Sutta Goswami is speaking to the sages of Namisaranya, so that these are 6 levels of conversations going on. Lord Krishna to Lord Brahma, Brahma to Narada, Narada Muni to Srila Vyasadeva, Srila Vyasadeva to Sukadeva Goswami, Sukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Pariksit, and then Sutta Goswami to the sages of Namisaranya. So now we will hear in the next verse because we heard before that the Absolute Truth makes arrangement for everyone in this material world to return to the spiritual world. It gives them the opportunity. But what else does the absolute truth do in relation to the material world? So, just a moment. Okay. Go back to just a moment. We need to get the technology right. Okay. So text 43. So what else does the Absolute Truth do in this material world? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Tata Kalakni Utratma Yatshistam Mitam Atmanaham Tata Kalakni Utratma Yatshistam Idam Atmana Sanyachati Tat Kale Pananikam Ivanila. So Thereafter, at the end of the millennium, the Lord himself in the form of Rudra, the destroyer, will annihilate the complete creation as the wind displaces the clouds. Can read the purport. That I read the first part, then someone can read the second, and someone else the third paragraph, but I read the first.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
Could I read?
Well, I will read the first paragraph. You can do the second. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
This creation is very appropriately compared to the clouds. Clouds are created or situated in the sky, and when they are displaced, they remain in the same sky without manifestation. Similarly, the whole creation is made by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of Brahma. It is maintained by him in the form of Vishnu, and it is destroyed by him in the form of Rudra or Shiva, all in due course. This creation, maintenance, and destruction are nicely explained in the Bhagavad Gita as follows. Buddha Rama Saivayam Buddha Buddha Praliyati Ratya Game Vasa Parta Bhavant Ar Agame Parastasmatu Bhavunyo Vyakta Vyakta Sanatana Yasa Sarveshu Bhutesu Nasyatsu Na Vinashati. The nature of the material world is that it is first created very nicely and then it develops very nicely and stays for a number of years, even beyond the calculation of the greatest mathematician. But after that, it is again destroyed in the night of Brahma without any resistance, and at the end of the night of Brahma, it is again manifested as a creation to follow the same principles of maintenance and destruction. The foolish conditioned soul, who has taken this temporary world as permanent settlement, has to learn intelligently why such creation and destruction take place. The fruitive actors in the material world are very enthusiastic in the creation of big enterprises, big houses, big empires, big industry, and so many big things out of the energy and ingredients supplied by the material agent of the Supreme Lord. With such resources and at the cost of valuable energy, the conditioned soul creates satisfying his whims, but he unwillingly has to depart from all his creations and enter into another phase of life to create again. You can read the next one, next paragraph.
Hare Krishna. To give hope to such foolish conditioned souls who waste their energy in this temporary material world, the Lord gives information that there is another nature which is eternally existent without being occasionally created or destroyed, and that the conditioned soul can understand what he should do and how his valuable energy may be utilized. Instead of wasting his energy in matter, which is sure to be destroyed in due course by the Supreme Will, the conditioned soul should utilize his energy in the devotional service of the Lord, so that he can be transferred to the other eternal nature, where there is no birth, no death, no creation, no destruction, but permanent life instead, full of knowledge and unlimited bliss. The temporary creation is thus exhibited and destroyed just to give information to the conditioned soul who is attached to temporary things. It is also meant to give him a chance for self-realization and not for self-gratification, which is the prime aim of all fruitive actors.
Thank you. So in the verse we have here an analogy of the clouds. The creation is very appropriately compared to the clouds. The clouds are created or situated in the sky, and when they are displaced, they remain in the same sky without manifestation. that so this creation and maintenance and destruction are very nicely explained in these two verses of the Bhagavad Gita here, text chapter 8, text 19 and 20. It says, again and again when Brahma's day arrives, all living entities come into being. With the arrival of Brahma's night, they are helplessly annihilated. Yes, there is another manifest nature, which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and it is never annihilated. When all in this world it is annihilated, that part remains as it is. So, two parts, spiritual worlds, they remain as it is. But the material world is very temporary. Creation, maintenance and destruction, although the time can even not be calculated by mathematicians, but yes, the foolish conditioned soul does not recognize the obvious, and what is very clear, it's all temporary, and they go on, they go on making plans, which are baffled one after another, because every time they die. So the foolish conditioned soul has taken this temporary world as permanent, but he should be intelligent. He has to learn intelligently why such creation and destruction takes place. So the foolish conditioned soul wastes their time in the temporary world. The Lord gives us information that there is another nature, which is eternal existence without being occasionally created or destroyed, and that the conditioned soul can understand what it should do and how valuable energy may be utilized. So the devotees are therefore, devotees usually live very simple, and that's in their interest. Otherwise they become attached to so many things and become very disappointed. This is something we have to learn in our lives. Make everything very simple. Don't strive for big things, for big houses and so on. No, keep yourself simple. That one works to live, one does not live to work. That's important. Life is meant for spiritual advancement. So instead of wasting one's energy in matter, and matter is sure to be destroyed. It's sure to be destroyed. It's all temporary. And that destruction is going on by the Supreme Lord's will. And so therefore we should use our energy in devotional service. We will hear that again in the 7th chapter of 7th canto, where Prahlad Maharaj preaches to his schoolmates. Kamara achatpahyo dharmam bhartamita iha durlabam manasam samyam tapya dhruvam ahtadam. One should use one's valuable human life by cultivating Krishna consciousness from a young age, because it's durlabam, this human form of life, very rarely attained. So Don't waste time. Use all your energy in devotion service, so that we can be transferred again to this other eternal nature, where there is no birth, no death, no creation, no destruction, but permanent life full of knowledge and unlimited bliss. So life is not meant for sense gratification, but we will learn in the 5th canto, chapter 5, the teachings of King Rishabhadev. Life is not meant for sense gratification, but for tapo divyam, the purification of the heart. So the temporary creation gives the conditioned soul a chance for self-realization and not for sense gratification. So now, text 44. Itam bhavena katito bhagavam bhagavattama etam bhavena param dastvam aranti shuraya. The great transcendentalist thus described the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the pure devotees deserve the more glorious things in transcendence beyond this feature. So the great transcendentalist thus described the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the pure devotee deserves to see more glorious things in transcendence beyond this feature. So it's nice to hear about this creation, maintenance and destruction, but devotees want to hear about the Lord in the spiritual world. Can someone read the first? Yeah, can someone read the purport? It's not so long.
Maharaj, can I read?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
The Lord is not only the creator and destroyer of the material manifestations of its different energies. He is more than a simple creator and destroyer, for there is his feature of Ananda or his pleasure feature. This pleasure feature of the Lord is understood by the pure devotees only and not by others. The impersonalist is satisfied simply by understanding the all-pervasive influence of the Lord. This is called Brahman realization. Greater than the impersonalist is the mystic who sees the Lord situated in his heart as Paramatma, the partial representation of the Lord. But there are pure devotees who take part in the direct pleasure, Ananda potency of the Lord by factual reciprocation of loving service. Lord in his abode called the Vaikuntha planets, which are eternal manifestations, always remains with his associates and enjoys transcendental loving services rendered by his pure devotees in different transcendental humors. During the manifestation of the creation, the pure devotees of the Lord practice the devotion service to the Lord and thus take full advantage of the manifestation by qualifying themselves to enter into the kingdom of God. The Bhagavad Gita 18.55 confirms this. Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi swatah tato mam tattvato jnatva visate tad anantaram. By development of pure devotional service, one can factually know the Lord as He is and thus be trained in the bona fide service of the Lord and be allowed to enter into the direct association of the Lord in so many capacities. The highest glorious association of the Lord is made possible in the planet of Goloka Vrindavana, where Lord Krishna enjoys himself with the gopis and his favorite animals, the Surbi cows. A description of this transcendental land of Krishna is given in the Brahma Samhita, which is considered by Lord Sri Chaitanya to be the most authentic literature in this connection. Hare Krishna.
Well, thank you. So Jiva Goswami comments on this text 44, and he makes a point, a contrast Lord Krishna with us. He says first, Lord Krishna in his dealings with the material world has no attachment, nor while dealing with it undergoes he any change. No change and no attachment. But when we deal with the material world, we become affected by it. So, text 44, the pleasure feature of the Lord is understood by the pure devotees only, and not by others. The pure devotees take part in the direct pleasure, ananda potency of the Lord, by factual reciprocation of loving service. So we had heard about this Virat Roop and this universal form, and Arjuna found it horrible because he wants a form of Krishna with who he can have a relationship. So devotees are more interested in hearing about the relationship with Krishna, and Krishna in his loving feature, so that they can take part in the direct experience of the pleasure potency of the Lord, who reciprocates with their loving devotional service. Thus the pure devotee of the Lord does undergo a practice of devotional service to the Lord during the manifestation of the creation, and take full advantage of the manifestation. By qualifying themselves to enter the kingdom of God, qualifying is this verse 1855, Bhakti-amamam janti vyasasmi tattvam tattvadogatvam visati tatanantram. One can only know Krishna by unalloyed devotion, pure devotion. So the highest association is possible with Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, where Lord Krishna enjoys himself with the gopis and his favorite animals, the surabhikas is mentioned here. And there are descriptions of that in the Brahma Samhita, which has been found by Lord Chaitanya. Only the 50th chapter has been recovered. The rest is lost. Lord Chaitanya found it in South India. Together with another book. Good. Text 55. Text 55. That is interesting, that we will hear about an analogy here. The analogy of, I remember when we did the Bhaktivaibhava, we got this question. Explain the Ajjagalastana Nyaya analogy. We will hear of that in this verse, the Ajjagalastana Nyaya. So, text 45. Nasya karmani janmada parasyan uvidiyate kartritva patite sadahtam mayayaropitam mitat. There is no direct engineering by the Lord for the creation and destruction of the material world. What is described in the Vedas about his direct interference is simply to counteract the idea that material nature is the creation. So that's the point. Why is this all this creation and destruction of the material world described? But just to show that Krishna is behind it. That's Maya Drakshana Prakriti. He has remote control of the material nature, although it's not directly visible by the conditioned souls. He controls everything. Can someone read it's a long purport, but we can start reading with the first chapter. Yeah, please read.
The Vedic direction for the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world is this: Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena zathani jivanti yat praya- prayanti abhishama vishanti. That is, everything is created by Brahman. After creation, everything is maintained by Brahman. And after annihilation, everything is conserved in Brahman. Gross materialists without any knowledge of Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan, conclude material nature to be the ultimate cause of the material manifestation. And the modern scientist also shares this view that the material nature is the ultimate cause of all the manifestations of the material world. This view is refuted by all Vedic literature. The Vedanta philosophy mentions that Brahman is the fountainhead of all creation, maintenance, and destruction. And Srimad Bhagavatam, the natural commentation on the Vedanta philosophy, says, Janmadesya yato anyad ittaratas sarapesma abhigna varat, etc. Inert matter is sorry, undoubtedly energy without potential to interact, but it has no initiative of its own. Srimad Bhagavatam therefore comments on the ecology Janmadesya by saying Abhigna and Swarat, that is, Supreme Brahman is not inert matter, but he is supreme consciousness and is independent. Therefore, inert matter cannot be the ultimate cause of the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world. Superficially, material nature appears to be the cause of creation, maintenance, and destruction, but material nature is set into motion for creation by the Supreme Conscious Being, the personality of Godhead. He is the background of all creation, maintenance, and destruction. And this is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9:10. Mayadhakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetunanyana panchaya sagat viparivardhate. The material nature is one of the energies of the Lord, and she can work under the direction of the Lord. Adhakshena. When the Lord throws his transcendental glance over the material nature, then only can the material nature act. As a father contacts the mother, who is then able to conceive a child. Although it appears to the layman that the mother gives birth to the child, the experienced man knows that the father gives birth to the child. The material nature therefore produces the moving and standing manifestations of the material world after being contacted by the Supreme Father and not independent. Considering material nature to be the cause of creation, maintenance, etc., is called the logic of nipples of the neck on the neck of a goat. The Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes this logic of Aja Gala Satan Tan Nyaya as follows, as explained by His Divine Grace, Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. The material nature as the material cause is known as Pradhan, and as the efficient cause is known as Maya. But Since it is inert matter, it is not the remote cause of creation. Kaviraj Goswami states as follows. तथैव कृष्णमूल जगत कारण प्रकृति कारण यैसे अजा गल तन. Because Karna Dakshai Vishnu is the planary expansion of Krishna, it is he who electrifies the matter to put it in motion. The example of electrification is quite appropriate. A piece of iron is certainly not fire, but when the iron is made red hot, certainly it has the quality of fire to its burning capacity. Matter is compared to the piece of iron, and it is electrified or made red hot by the glance of manipulation of the supreme consciousness of Krishna. Only by such electrification is the energy of matter displayed in various actions and reactions. Therefore, the inert matter is neither efficient nor the material cause of the cosmic manifestation. Sri Kapila has said, Yat ol mukhad vishnu lingad umad vapi swasambhavat sambhavat api atmatmena vima matad yathagni prathag ul mukhad. The original fire, its flame, its spark, and its smoke are all one. For fire is still fire, yet is different from the flame. Flame is different from spark, and sparks are different from the smoke. In every one of them, namely in the flames, in the sparks, and in the smoke, the integrity of fire is present. Yet all of them are differently situated with different resistance. The cosmic manifestation is compared to smoke because when smoke passes over the sky, so many forms appear, resembling many known and unknown manifestations. The sparks are compared to living entities, and the flames are compared to material nature predefined. One must know that each and every one of them is effective simply because of being empowered by the quality of the original fire. Therefore, all of them, namely the material nature, the cosmic manifestation, and the living entities, are but different energies of the Lord, fire. Therefore, those who accept the material nature as the cosmic manifestation's original cause, Prakriti, the cause of creation according to Sankhya philosophy, are not correct in their conclusion. The material nature has no separate existence without the Lord. Therefore, setting aside the Supreme Lord as the cause of all causes is the logic of Ajagalas Tana Nayaya, or trying to milk the nipples of the neck on the neck of a goat. The nipples on the neck of a goat may seem like sources of milk, but to try to get milk from such nipples will be foolish.
Thank you. So it means first materialists, they don't have any knowledge of Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. And they conclude material nature is the cause of everything. That it's also modern scientists, they share this view. They come even up with statements that consciousness arises at a certain moment for matter, that but they can, it's a post-stated check, Srila Prabhupada said. They can never give evidence of that. So if your science is based on evidence, but they don't have evidence, and still they make the statement, that's foolishness. So yes, Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentation on the Vedanta Sutra, because Vedanta Sutra, the first verse is Janmadhyasya, and then the Bhagavatam, the first verse is Janmadhyasya yatam vayati taratas satis abhihyas parantini brahmaridaya adakavayi muyanti yatsurya. Yeah, so yes, it's clear, the Bhagavatam explains this aphorism, Janmadi Asya, Janmadi Asya Yatam Fayat. So it's the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. It's a commentary coming from the compiler of Vedanta Sutra, Vihe-Bhaktivaibhava. So I remember that Bhaktisvarup Damodar Maharaj, who was heading up the Bhaktivedanta Institute, Science Institute, he wrote in the maybe 40 years ago, he started a magazine, a science magazine, forgot the name, but in the first magazines, the first aphorism, 5 other aphorisms of Vedanta Sutra are explained in a very scientific way, with proven evidence, very nicely done. These are just the first 5, but it could go much further. Because the Lord is Abhikya and Svarat. He is not inert matter, he is supreme consciousness, and he is independent. Therefore, inert matter cannot be the ultimate cause of creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world. So, material nature is set in motion for creation by the supreme conscious living being, the supreme personality of Godhead. So, Mayatiksana Prakriti. Without the touch of the Lord, material nature would not be alive, that would not exist. We have seen in all the verses that we heard in this chapter, the Lord's desires to see, and and the sun was created, the eyeball is created, the person who sees is that we have heard all these things. Everything is dependent on the Lord, not independent. So material nature produces after being contacted by the Supreme Father. So Lord Krishna is a remote cause of creation. An example is given here of electrification. So I will now read first a verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we will come back to this. This is from the Adi Lila, chapter 5, text 61. Let's see. Therefore, Lord Krishna is the original cause of the cosmic manifestation. Prakriti is like the nipples on the neck of a goat. They cannot give any milk. And there we have a whole purport Srila Prabhupada gives us. And there you have this verse 3 in the purport. It's on the screen. 3:28:40. So all the smoke, flaming wood and sparks are all considered together as ingredients of fire. The flaming wood is nevertheless different from the fire, and the smoke is different from the flaming wood. The material elements, earth, water, fire, etc., are like smoke. The living entities are like sparks. Material nature, as Pradhan, is like the flaming wood. But all of them together are recipients of the power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and are thus able to manifest individual capacities. In other words, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the origin of all manifestations. Material nature can supply only what is activated by the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just as a woman can deliver a child after being impregnated by the semen of a man, so material nature can supply the material elements after being glanced upon by Mahavishnu. Therefore, Pradhan cannot be independent of the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9.10. Mayadakshana Prakriti Characham. Prakriti, the total material energy, works under the superintendence of the Lord. The original source of the material elements is Krishna. Therefore, the attempt of the atheistic Sankhya philosophers to consider material nature the source of these elements, forgetting Krishna, is useless, like trying to get milk from the nipple-like bumps of skin hanging on the neck of a goat. That's more graphic. So material nature is a cosmic manifestation. The living entities are but different energies of the Lord. So the material nature has no separate existence without the Lord. And so this is this analogy of Ajagalastana Nyaya, which we need to remember. The analogy of the neck of the goat. Try to get milk from such nipples will be foolish. That was from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now we go back to text 46. Ayam tu brahmana kalpa savikalpa udarita vivid sadarano yatra sarga pagati Vaitkrita. So this is, okay. This process of creation and annihilation described in summary herein is the regulative principles during the duration of Brahma's one day. It is also the regulative principles in the creation of Mahat, in which the material nature is dispersed. So during the duration of Brahma's one day, we will hear about different kinds of creation in the purport. The Mahakalpa, the Vikalpa, and the Kalpa. And then we have 30 Kalpas in one day of Brahma. So Kalpa is the measuring of time. So the Kalpa of Brahma, the one day, consists of 30 other Kalpas, sub-Kalpas we can say. So the process of creation and annihilation is described in summary here. We will hear that more in detail in the next canto. That in the teachings of Lord Kapila Dev, that will come back. So, can you read the purport, please?
I can read.
Yes, please.
There are three different types of creation called Mahakalpa, Vikalpa, and Kalpa. In the Mahakalpa, the Lord assumes the first Purusha incarnation as Karanodakshaya Vishnu with all the potencies of the Mahatattva, the 16 principles of creative matter and instruments. The creative instruments are 11, the ingredients are 5, and all of them are products of Mahat or the materialistic ego. These creations by the Lord in his feature of Karanadaksha Vishnu are called Mahakalpas. The creation of Brahma and the dispersion of the material ingredients are called Vikalpa. And the creation by Brahma in each day of his life is called a Kalpa. Therefore, each day of Brahma is called a Kalpa. And there are 30 Kalpas in each of Brahma's month. This is in the upper planetary system, the duration of one complete day and night is equal to one complete year of this earth. This is accepted even by the modern scientists and attested by the astronauts. Similarly, in the region of still higher planetary systems, the duration of day and night is still greater than the heavenly planets. The 4 yugas are calculated in terms of heavenly calendar, and accordingly last 12,000 years in terms of heavenly planets. This is called Divya Yuga, and 1,000 Divya Yugas make one day of Brahma. As mentioned above, the creation during the day of Brahma is called a Kalpa. The creation of Brahma is called a Vikalpa. When Vikalpas are made possible by the breathing of Mahavishnu, that is called a Mahakalpa. There are regular and systematic cycles of these Mahakalpas, Vikalpas and Kalpas. In the Prahash Khanda of Skanda Purana, Sukadeva Goswami replies as follows to the question of Parikshit Maharaj concerning the Kalpas.
Yeah, you can skip the summary and read the translation at the end.
Thank you, Maharaj. The 30 Kalpas of Brahma are Shveta Kalpa, Nilohita Kalpa, Vamandev Kalpa, Gathantara Kalpa, Rovara Kalpa, Prana Kalpa, Brahat Kalpa, Kandarpa Kalpa, Sadayotha Kalpa, Ishana Kalpa, Dhyana Kalpa, Saraswata Kalpa, Udhana Kalpa, Garuda Kalpa, Kaurama Kalpa, Narsiha Kalpa, Samadhi Kalpa, Agniya Kalpa, Vishnu Jana Kalpa, Shaurya, Soma, Bhavana, Supama, Vaikuntha, Achisha, Vali, Vairaja, Gauri, Maheshwara, Petra. These are Brahma's days only, and he has to live months of these days, up to 100 years. So we can just imagine how many creations there are in Kalpas only. Then again, there are Vikalpas, which are mentioned above, are generated by the breathing of Mahavishnu. This is stated in Brahma Samhita, Yasyaika Nishtakala Athavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilija Jagadantanatha. The Brahmas live only during the breathing period of Mahavishnu. So the exhalation and inhalation of Vishnu as Mahakalpas and all these are due to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for no one else is the master of all creations.
Thank you. Acha Prabhu. That's very nice. So it's described here in the beginning. The creation of Brahma and the dispersion of the material ingredients are called Vikarma. And the creation by Brahma in each day is called Kalpa. So there are different types of creation here. That Makalpa, Vikalpa, Kalpa. Makalpa means it's the breathing out of Mahavishnu, Karanodakasaya Vishnu. The Lord assumes the first Purush incarnation as Karanodakasaya Vishnu is mentioned here, with all the potencies of the Mahatattva and the 16 principles of creative matter and instruments. So that's the whole saga that so the creative instruments are 11, the ingredients are 5, and all of them are products of the Mahat, or materialistic ego. So that's the creation of the Mahat Tattva and everything it produces. And the Vikalpa is the creation of Brahma, that's the Visarga, the complete Visarga. And the dispersion of the material ingredients are called Vikalpa, yeah. But then Kalpa is the creation of Brahma each day, and these days here at the end we see they have names of the present month of Brahma. Every day has a main as a name that in which different different incarnations appear. So these are 30 kalpas in terms of Brahma's days. So we hear about this all, this kalpas, and the next we hear about the Padma Kalpa or the Varaha Kalpa. That's text 47. Parimanam sakalasya kalpa lakshana vikraham yata purasta vyakhyasye Padman kalpam atoshina. O king, I shall in due course explain the measurement of time in its gross and subtle features, with the specific symptoms of each, but for the present let me explain unto you the Padma Kalpa. So this is a small purport. Someone can read this purport, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
So, please.
The present duration of a kalpa of Brahma is called the Varaha Kalpa or Sveta Varaha Kalpa, because the incarnation of the Lord as Varaha took place during the creation of Brahma, who was born on the lotus coming out of the abdomen of Vishnu. Therefore, this Varaha Kalpa is also called Padma Kalpa, and this is testified by acharyas like Jiva Goswami as well as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in pursuance of the first commentator, Swami Sridhara. So there is no contradiction between the Varaha and the Padma Kalpa of Brahma.
So, conclusion is, the Varaha Kalpa is the Padma Kalpa of the Kalpa in which the incarnation of the lotus Varaha appears. Now, text 48. Sanaka Rishi, after hearing all about the creation, inquired from Sutta Goswami about Vidura, for Sutta Goswami had previously informed him how Vidura left home, leaving aside all his relatives, who were very difficult to leave. Purport: the rishis headed by Sanaka were more anxious to know about Vidura, who met Maitreya Rishi while traveling to the pilgrimage sites of the world. So the beginning of the next canto, the third canto, will speak about Vidura's history and its meeting with Maitreya Muni. Now text 49-50. Yes. Sanaka Rishi said, let us know, please, what topics were discussed between Vidura and Maitreya, who talked on transcendental subjects, and what was inquired by Vidura and replied by Maitreya. Also, please let us know the reason for Vidura's giving up the connection of his family members and why he again went home. Please also let us know the activities of Vidura while he was in the places of pilgrimage. We have the purport here. Someone can read the purport?
I can read it. No?
Please do.
I'm sorry.
Please go.
Someone else? Sri Sutta Goswami was narrating the topics of the creation and destruction of the material world, but it appears that the rishis headed by Shaunaka were more inclined to hear of transcendental subjects, which are on a higher level than the physical. There are two classes of men, namely those too addicted to the gross body and the material world, and others on the higher level, who are interested more in transcendental knowledge. Srimad Bhagavatam gives facility to everyone, both to the materialist and to the transcendentalist. By hearing Srimad Bhagavatam in the matter of the Lord's glorious activities both in the material world and in the transcendental world, man can derive equal benefit. The materialists are more interested in the physical laws and how they're acting, and they see wonders in those physical glamours. Sometimes, due to physical glamours, they forget the glories of the Lord. They should know definitely that physical activities and their wonders are all initiated by the Lord. The rose in the garden gradually takes its shape and color to become beautiful and sweet, not by a blind physical law, although it appears like that. Behind that physical law is the direction of the complete consciousness of the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, things cannot take shape so systematically. The artist draws a picture of a rose very nicely with all attention and artistic sense, and yet it does not become as perfect as the real rose. If that is the real fact, how can we say that the real rose has taken its shape without intelligence behind the beauty? This sort of conclusion is due to a poor fund of knowledge. One must know from the above description of creation and annihilation that the Supreme Consciousness, being omnipresent, can take care of everything with perfect attention. That is the fact of the omnipresence of the Supreme Lord. Persons still more foolish than the gross materialists, however, claim to be transcendentalists and claim to have such supreme all-pervading consciousness but offer no proof. Such foolish persons cannot know what is going on behind the next wall, yet they are falsely proud of possessing the cosmic, all-pervading consciousness of the Supreme Person. For them also, hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam is a great help. It will open their eyes to see that simply by claiming Supreme Consciousness, one does not become supremely conscious. One has to prove in the physical world that he has such Supreme Consciousness. The rishis of Naimisharanya, however, were above the gross materialists and the false transcendentalists, and thus they were always anxious to know the real truth in transcendental matters as discussed by authorities.
Thank you so much. So these rishis, headed by Saunaka Rishi, they wanted to hear about the Lord, transcendental subject matters, which are on. These are subjects which are higher than this physical creation. So there are two classes of men here. Those who are addicted to the gross body and the material world at one side, and those on a higher level who are interested in transcendental knowledge. By hearing in the matter of the Lord's glorious activities, both in the material world and in the transcendental world, man can derive equal benefit. So materialists should know definitely that physical activities and their wonders are all initiated by the Lord. That's the point, not independent. So behind the physical law is the direction of the complete consciousness of the Supreme Lord. And we cannot merge with that complete consciousness. That's another myth. No, we can connect ourselves with the Lord through devotional service. That's by bhakti. So now we will read the last verse for today. Sutta vacharachna parikshita Krishto yat avocham mahamuni tattva dasye shenuta rachya prashnanu sarata. Sutta Goswami explained, I shall now explain to you the very subject matter, the very subjects explained by the great sage in answer to Maharaj King Parik's inquiries. please hear them attentively. Someone can read the last purport? Someone can read? You don't hear anything. Nilamani, probably don't hear you. No, it work. Okay, I will read the purport. Any question that is put forward may be answered by the authority, and that satisfies the saner section. That is a system even in the law court. The best lawyer gives evidence from the past judgment of the court without taking much trouble to establish his case. This is called a Bprs system, and learned authorities following it without manufacturing rubbish interpretations. Ishvara Paramakrishna Sakshananda Vigra Nadirada Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. That is all obeyed to the Supreme Lord, whose hand is in everything, without exception. So, here we are. So, this is the purport, in this purport establishes the importance of the Guru Parampara. And there is an analogy here. The best lawyer gives evidence from the past judgment of the court without taking much trouble to establish his case. This is called a Bprs system, and learned authorities following it without manufacturing rubbish interpretations. So that's the end of the second canto. Any questions, comments, please? Yes, Mother Kanta, please.
Hare Krishna. I have a question about the recent verses. Is it true that the sages of Naimisharanya, they were directing the conversation between them and Sutta Goswami, and that Sutta Goswami, it seems that he didn't just retold the conversation between the Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadeva Goswami, but it seems that it was the flow of this conversation was changed by the sages of Naimisharanya. Is it true, or it just seems so?
Well, I cannot say that Sutta Goswami used the same sequence as Sukadeva Goswami, but in any case, because Sutta Goswami speaks also the first canto, and the real Bhagavatam starts, or the Bhagavatam starts with the second canto. The first part is also the Bhagavatam, but it's history, there are general facts, introduction, and giving the essence already of the Bhagavatam. So it's very important, especially the purpose of Srila Prabhupada are more valuable than the verses itself, because it gives us the deeper understanding, the deeper understanding behind the verses. But in general, the same knowledge and the same verses have spoken. The sequence may be different. Yes? Something else?
Thank you.
But, so the gods, we went to this second canto, that second canto which had very, very important points which will be developed further in this Bhagavatam. It's like the essential introduction So, Advaita Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much. Following up on Mother Ekanta's question, is it also possible, which I've heard, just confirming, that Vyasadeva also he re-edited and he presented the discussions in a sequence to make it more, literary or more appropriate for reading and for the future generations? Or is it a narration, like point by point, exactly as it happened? Or
Well, Sutta Goswami repeats the words of Sukadev Goswami. That and that may be in another sequence that may be, but he ad verbatim says what he heard from Sukadev Goswami. And that remains a fact. He did not add something, he did not leave something out. He repeated everything. The sequence may be different, but the Sanskrit is identical. That's identical. So it's not that we can change books or we can change the books of Prabhupada. It's a very controversial thing today. And many devotees are dissatisfied with what the BBT did, and resistance is growing day by day. That's it's, and I do not want to go in that controversy, but it's a fact. It's something to be very careful. At the same time, the books of Prabhupada must be explained according to time, place, and circumstances. In 200 years from now, the English of today, nobody will understand it anymore. So, yeah, you have two possibilities. You keep the archaic English that nobody understands and write a paper to that, or what do? No, so editing is a need also, but editing without changing is not easy. It's not easy. One must be really spiritual advanced to do that. And that we learn from Srila, from Krishnadas Kaviraj Prabhu, yeah, Krishnadas Kaviraj, who wrote the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He was in his maturity, more than 90 years old, and he begged from the blessings of the Vaishnavas and so on to do that. So not everyone can do that. It's the qualification is not literary qualification, it's spiritual advancement and understanding the deeper meaning. One must be practically an Uttam Adhikar to do that.
yes.
And that's the problem. Some things may have been appropriate, other things not. So it's something to be very careful with. So, but we see that Sutta Goswami is quoting the Sanskrit verses from memory ad verbatim, and there is no change in the Sanskrit verses.
Yes. Yeah, when we consider that, second verse is Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimva Parerishvara Shadyori Devarudyate Kriti. So there it says Vyasadeva in his maturity he composed the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
Right. So then Sukadeva Goswami, after hearing the two verses about Hapiran and the verse about the mercy of Lord, then he goes back and studies it under the care of his father. So it's like, in what format did he study it? And because obviously Vyasadeva taught Srimad Bhagavatam to Sukadeva Goswami, and then Sukadeva Goswami obviously sat down and spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj was heard by Suta Goswami. So it's kind of a puzzle, to say the least. How does it all work out? And of course, these three great personalities, all did it for our salvation and mercy unto us. We're just trying to understand it. It's
Yeah, it's a challenge. Yeah, yeah. It requires humility. But thank you. Nilamani Prabhu, does your microphone?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Sorry about that problem. So Maharaj, I had a question not related to today's verses, but the first verse in the 10th chapter, it's one of our memorization verses.
Yeah.
And I was working on trying to memorize it, and in the word-for-word translation for Nirodha, it is translated as going back home, back to Godhead. And Nirodha, primarily the meaning of Nirodha is annihilation. And I was just trying to reconcile that. I understand Nirodha. I think one of the meanings is also to do with giving up the gross and subtle bodies, but just that translation there doesn't seem to be the most direct translation there in that context. But I don't know if there was any specific reasons for it. Or...
Yeah. Just a moment. Let's get it back on the screen here. Here it says Nirodha,
going back home, back to Godhead.
going back home, back to Godhead. Yeah, yeah.
And the translation is also the same in the translation. That's why I was having difficulty trying to memorize the translation there also.
Yeah, in that sense. Returning home, back to Godhead. Liberation. Yeah, Nirodha. That And what was the other meaning you said?
I think when Mother Prashanta gave us the seminar on the 10 topics, she said that according to Suta Goswami from the 12th canto, Nirodha, there's 4 types of Nirodha, right? I'm not sure if I remember them all, but I think one of the ones, the last ones, I think, was it Atyantika? Atyantika Nirodha referred to the idea of the jiva giving up the gross and subtle bodies and going back home to God. So I suppose that must be the connection, but it just...
Yeah, of course. That's the definition of liberation, but mukti is the next point. Liberation.
Right.
There's a difference between mukta and nirodha. Nirodha means, one gives up the gross and subtle body and goes back to Godhead. Mukti, liberation, means one attains liberation, gives up the gross and subtle body, and one can merge into Brahman, get Brahman realization. So that's mukti is not the same as nirodha. That one who attains nirodha, going back to Godhead, has attained the perfect mukti. But finally, these 10 topics must lead one to the summum bonum. So even the one who gets liberation in Brahman must then come back to the material world to realize the summum bonum and go back to God. So that's the point here. Does that help?
Yeah, I suppose it's just trying to reconcile it and memorize it in that context.
Okay, thank you.
So on that, Maharaj, one thing I want to add is Nirodho, the meaning in the word six, it means the winding up of the cosmic manifestation, which is the verse explaining the subject.
Yes, right.
And then when I read Vishwanath Chakravarti's Thakur's meaning, this is again written by Bhanu Maharaj, the first verse, he translates that as is that he says, one second, destruction of the universe. That's how he translates.
Yeah. So there are different points here. There are that first each text 6 gives a definition of liberation also. Both Nirodha and Mukti. Liberation is a permanent situation of the form of a living entity. So material nature gives two kinds of facilities to the conditioned souls. And that's about Nirodha. One facility is that the conditioned soul can act according to its tendency to lord it over the cosmic manifestation. Another facility, and the second is the conditioned soul a chance to come back to Godhead and attain spiritual and original bodies after quitting of the gross and subtle body. That's what Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, and Srila Prabhupada stresses that point again here. It gives conditioned soul a chance to go back to Godhead. Yes. So the material conditional bodies develop out of the living entities, forgetfulness of their relationship with the Supreme Lord. Hearing and reading of such transcendental literature help one to become liberated, even in the conditioned state of material existence. So the Vedic hymns reveal that the Lord is the supreme cause of all attraction, and one who is fortunate can get this information from Srimad Bhagavatam, permanently liberated. So it seems Srila Prabhupada stresses, it's an opportunity to go back to Godhead, Nirodha, that how to get free from the continuous creation and all the miseries of the living entities. And that's a point Srila Prabhupada makes about Nirodha. That,
Thank you, Maharaj.
There's nothing more I can say than Prabhupada. Thank you, Acharya Prabhu, for being that. Mother Ambika, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I had similar questions about Nirodha, which I also have written down the same explanation as what Acharya Prabhu said. But can we at first explain the winding up of the cosmic manifestation and what happens when the cosmic manifestation is wound up, and then explain that it is a chance for living entities to go back to Godhead?
Yeah, there are different things in the winding up of the material manifestation, that when Vishnu inhales and everything is destroyed, then it is said that the living entities who are on the higher planetary systems, Marloka, Tapaloka, Janaloka, Satyaloka, they go to Satyaloka, and with Brahma, they return back to the spiritual world. So that's if Brahma is a pure devotee. There are a few conditions there. But anyway, that is also going back to Godhead for them. So we can see it from different angles of view here. And that's interesting. That so the winding up. And similarly, like the winding up of the material creation, that will be explained later in the Bhagavatam. it's a reverse creation. Everything merges back. Elements merge back in one of in the previous. So earth merges into water, water into fire, fire into air, air into ether, and ether goes back into the pradhan, and so that's a reverse creation. But this nirodha is also for us that winding up. If we become Krishna conscious, then we merge and give back all the elements to material nature, one after another, until we are liberated. It's not easy to understand, but that will be explained later in the matter of Nirodha. That when we become Krishna conscious, then we merge back everything, we give everything back to material nature. It merges back. That it's a reverse creation. Not easy to understand, but it will be no need to go into that now deeper, because it will be discussed in later cantos. But it is a reverse creation, individually and on the level of the gross material manifestation. It's a merging back into the previous elements. That is when we become Krishna consciousness. That's what will happen. So does that help, Rambika?
Yes, very much. Thank you.
Okay, so later in the next canto, or the fourth canto even, that will be discussed more deeply. Because everything in these cantos, it's just the introduction of all the subject matters in this chapter. And now we are going to try to understand that more deeply in the next cantos. So, anything else?
Thank you very much, Maharaj, for taking the time to take us through the chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Very nice to get your association.
Yeah, I tried my best, and I'm looking forward to see you all in one of the next cantos, maybe. It depends, if Krishna willing, if you are still in this body and my health is good, I'll try my best to be at your service. I'm not the most qualified speaker, but I'm doing my best. Hare Krishna, Jai Prabhupada.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.